All right, good morning and welcome to the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for December 1st, 2015. Special order calendar, continued hearings. First item, calendar number 20262BZ, 950 Allerton Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, they requested an adjournment on this.
All right, second item, calendar number 2791BZ, 1931 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, this one, I'm not sure kind of where we are on this. They provided a copy of professionally certified Department of Buildings plans dated 2005 for showing 12,458 square feet with 41 parking spaces. They also provided photos to show that the site is clean with planting all around. What's confusing to me is it looks as if there's either the correct amount of parking spaces or short by literally half a space. So in which case there isn't any reason for this variance.
I thought they were going to surrender their grant.
No, they were going to look into whether they could surrender the grant, and I didn't see any follow-up on that. And if I were the owner, I would certainly want to find that extra parking space, or maybe do an as-built floor area takeoff to find out how much floor area there really is, because maybe 41 spaces isn't enough.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't really know. Why would you want to hold on to a variance where you're married for life to us?
Not that we're not wonderful to be
Yeah,
with.
but expensive and unnecessary for all because of one space, perhaps. Anybody else?
Well, I think the problem was that they gave us plans and information, but they didn't submit a letter or explain what they were trying to do. It would have been helpful.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 3, calendar number 15692BZ, 1835 Bay Ridge Parkway, Brooklyn.
Okay, they provided photos showing the site is cleaned up, but they were supposed to provide receptacles and keep the trash inside the building until pickup. That'll have to be a condition to a proposed resolution. And also, they clarified again that the third floor is limited to conferences and educational purposes, which would also be a condition. Anybody else? That was it.
Item number 4, calendar number 13193BZ, 3743 through 3761 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
They provided to us a revised plan with the spaces numbered, the site organized and landscaped, and maneuverability described, and which I found credible, the maneuverability. They provided photos showing the site is cleaned up and bumpers installed and equipment and excess signage removed and fencing in better shape. I'm okay with this, but I would have it be a resolution on condition, or a vote on condition, that for one, that they need to keep the site and the walls of abutting buildings accessible by the applicant, clear of graffiti, that all the landscaping is in place as per the plans, that fencing is in good repair, and limits on vehicles awaiting service and parked only as shown on the plans.
And also to reiterate the fact that there should be no outdoor work.
No repair work afterwards.
Right, because they did remove the lift mechanicals.
Okay.
Okay, item number 5, calendar number 12997BZ, 150 through 65 Cross Island Parkway, Queens.
Okay, we need to adjourn this, but we don't actually have a letter. So we need a letter requesting an adjournment.
Okay, item number 6, 36903BZ, calendar number, and then address 99-01 Queens Boulevard, Queens.
They provided a copy of the public assembly permit filing and approval. They provided permits for 4 signs, although I found it difficult to understand what goes with what. I mean, those kind of permits are pretty nondescript. They provided sign elevations and calculations. We had asked, however, for proof that the fire safety systems were installed and inspected. They didn't provide that. So that would be great if we could get that today. Anybody else?
Okay. Item number 7, calendar number 31806BZ, 4905 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
They requested an 8-week adjournment on this.
Item number 8, calendar number 9708BZ, 84 Sanford Street, Brooklyn.
It's kind of an ongoing saga with this one. Just as a kind of point of information, we met the BSA, some of the people, staff at BSA met with the Mayor's Office of Environmental Remediation, which we learned has a monitoring program for active subslab pressurization systems. Given the fact that half of the system is non-operational and there's no way for us to ensure that it remains operational, we will work with OER and enroll this project in that program. I note that there was an inspection of the site by an independent engineer, and it revealed that half the system isn't functioning, and meanwhile the school is occupied with children. So the whole point was to protect the children from toxic fumes. They submitted information on status of the review and inspections of various systems. I note that the fire alarm system was filed and signed off as a Directive 14. I'd like to know whether there are other systems signed off as Directive 14s. But according to this, the fire department did sign off on it, so I'd like the fire department to comment on whether they're satisfied with the conditions of the building, conduct an inspection if one has not been conducted very recently. The submission also includes a 1-year lease with a neighboring property, and the lease has no specified purpose. We're told in the statement of facts that the trash will be stored there, and shown 2 photos of small dumpsters that appear to me to be inadequate to handle the needs of the school. For me, a 1-year lease of unspecified purpose is not a permanent solution, so is not acceptable. The school needs to purchase a trash compactor, and food refuse must be refrigerated. They need to show on the plans where the interior trash storage area is. A noise report was also provided without backup data. The report states that sound levels between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. didn't exceed 40 dBA, but the maximum recorded noise levels at 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. were 58 and 61 dBA respectively, and no info was provided about 9 a.m. So I don't understand where all those conclusions came from. I'm also not understanding why sounds from a loading dock across the street and neighboring commercial space are discounted. The whole point of the study is that this is a school and a manufacturing district, and traffic is not the only noise source. Otherwise, we wouldn't really be asking for this noise study. We're still waiting for the traffic study, which was promised in the statement of fact but not submitted, or promised in a cover letter. And the building has to be completely cleaned and signed off by all agencies for us to be able to come to a vote on this. We are also reaching out to the Department of Health and the UPK task force for their reports, as there was comment in the statement of facts that are reviewing the school, and so we would like to know what it is they have to say. Anybody else?
Well, I would suggest considering the condition of the sub-slab depressurization system that they do indoor air quality monitoring, which will give, I mean, the only reason why we learned about this situation is because they came back for an extension of time.
Right.
And I think previously, none of the sub-slab depressurization system was working, and they finally turned on half. So I'm very concerned about that. And I agree that it would be extremely good for OER to monitor them over time. And yes, the trash storage, whatever they're planning to do, is not really adequate, considering the mountain of trash they have outside the building.
Anyone else?
I mean, you raised it, the fact that it's a one-year lease is a concern, and even if it were an extended period of lease, it's not an abutting property.
Right.
So I'm not sure how the trash is going to be transported there, and that would be at the street level, which is exactly what we want to avoid doing. So I'm not sure it still would address the concerns that we raised here.
I agree. And you can't prevent the property owner from taking advantage of the property. So eventually, if they want to build something, then there's no facility for trash. So that's not an acceptable solution. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Okay. Item number 9, calendar number 4710BZ, 895 Zariga Avenue, the Bronx.
They requested an adjournment on this, actually, till in December, but I don't think we'll have time on the calendar for that.
Okay. Item number 10, this is new cases. Item number 10, calendar number 9806BZ, 1045 Beach, 9th Street, Queens.
Okay. The statement of facts and the architect's letter incorrectly states that the DOB objection is for too many non-compliances. However, by increasing the height as proposed, the degree of non-compliance with respect to height, sky exposure plane, front setback, and side setback regulations is increased by comparison to what was approved in 2012. So in fact, those are the right objections. I'd like more information about the water table. Since the water table was known by 2008 and prior to the 2012 amendment, I'm not understanding why that is being raised as a reason for the requested increase now. Why was there a height increase in 2012 from 46 feet to 50 feet?
That was because of the water table. This time they're asking because of the price of the steel beams.
Okay.
And because they feel that they need greater floor-to-ceiling heights in certain rooms.
Okay, so I think it's not clear because they keep talking about water table in the statement of facts. I did understand about the price of steel, but they kept weaving in water table as if that's a new discovery, so, okay. I also found the statement of facts very confusing about the role of the water table in setting slab levels. This is really a comment about the statement of facts. Happily, there are drawings. The water table talks about the cellar slab being 4 feet above the water table, 4 feet below grade. It's just kind of all over the place. I note also that the 2012 resolution seemed to be equally confused, as it states that the yeshiva can't be constructed more than 4 feet below grade, which does not appear to be the case, given that there's a 15-foot cellar. So there's kind of mistakes that were carried through into the resolution. The revised plans don't provide a section to explain the floor-to-floor heights and floor-to-ceiling heights and structure. We need to have those. However, the elevation does show this unusual for an elevation. The elevation does show the cellar 15 feet below grade, which is high enough for a storage mezzanine to be inserted between the cellar slab and the ceiling. So I asked, why can't the cellar height be reduced? What's the reason for the first floor to be 4 feet above grade? The other is, what's the reason for a 1 foot 5 inch increase in ceiling height in the Beit Midrash? There, the steel modification accounts for only 4 inches. And what's the reason for the 5 inch ceiling height increase in the upper floors? Again, the ceiling only accounts for 4 inches. The statement of facts insists the need for the 4-foot height increase is purely structural, but that's not the case. Between the 2007 approval and this request, the increase in building height will be 8 feet, plus the parapet will be an apparent height increase of 12 feet, plus all of the fencing for the play roof and mechanicals. So I'd like to know why there's been a shift in ceiling height needed and floor-to-floor heights between 2012 and today. It's the same architect. I'm not understanding why all of a sudden there's a discovery that you need higher floor-to-floor heights. And I'm not sure, perhaps other commissioners remember, why the height was set that way. Was there negotiation to make it as low as possible, in which event then they're coming back and asking us to reconsider what was already considered? I also want to know whether the mechanicals on the roof and the play area can be rearranged so as to allow for a setback of the protective fencing to reduce the apparent height of the building. Like slide everything in and gather it, because actually the play area kind of wanders around the mechanicals in not a great way. So if it was better organized, you could pull the fences in closer. The elevator bulkhead, I know it is also enormous at 27 foot 6 feet above the roof to the top of the elevator bulkhead slab. That's twice the height of the 2012 bulkhead. What's the reason for this height increase? Anybody else?
Well, when we had the initial grant, height was definitely very much a factor, and we did spend a lot of time trying to bring the height down because the character of the neighborhood. The blocks immediately surrounding this synagogue, this school, are very low-rise, 2- and 3-story detached homes with 1 or 2 4-story apartment buildings, and one of them is adjacent to this school, and so we spent a lot of time trying to reduce the height of the proposed school so that it would at least match up with the 4-story building next to it and not exceed the height. So then when it came back around, because of the water table in 2012, we reluctantly allowed them to have that extra height. But I think that they're literally trying to unravel the original grant, and I find that troubling, because we did spend a lot of time and we took a lot of care with this to make sure that it wouldn't destroy the character of the neighborhood.
Right. Interesting.
I felt that the information they gave us regarding the price of the steel was rather weak. Originally, they planned to use 12-inch beams. Now they're saying they have to use 16-inch beams, but they didn't give us any actual quotes or any actual data. They just said that the construction manager thought that steel was cheaper a year ago, but what does that mean? So I thought that and if that's one of their main reasons for coming to us, they have to give us better information.
And I just really wasn't convinced necessarily that their plan for deeper steel beams was really something that I could necessarily agree with, that they didn't put forth any sort of alternatives that would keep the height as it was. There are, other structural schemes that might have kept it at a similar height. So I was not really just convinced that this was the only way to go.
I think I would like to know if there are other alternate construction methodology that could maintain the same building height and yet be cost effective.
Okay. And to note, on another project we had recently, the height was a very big issue, and so they kept coming back with modifications to the structure. And it's an organization that is very strapped for money, so they were able to be responsive to the height by working with the structure to reduce it as much as possible. So this seems like they're trying to back out of something that was agreed before, and I don't really understand the concept of being so uninformed about your project when you come here, especially in this case because it's the same architect. Okay.
Appeals calendar, decision items, item number 11, 13515A, 50 Oak Point Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, We're still waiting for a community board recommendation. I still didn't, and I also didn't see proof of service in the file, so I kind of don't know what's going on, and nothing was submitted, so we have to postpone this or get some information.
Okay, continued hearings, item number 12, 6515BZ / 6615A, 361 Central Park West, Manhattan.
And I have to recuse from this?
So at the last hearing, the applicant had revised their plans to show a lesser variance, which included more community facility area, fewer residential units, and decreasing the amount of waivers that they requested by providing more light and air. Additionally, the applicant revised their financials to reflect those changes. However, I think the board still had questions concerning site value as it pertained to the value of the potential development rights, that there could or would be marketable or usable. In particular, the board questioned whether the development rights had really any value if they could not be used or transferred to an appropriate receptor site. In response to the board's comments, the applicant in the latest submission provided revised drawings that included an additional staircase within the community facility area to fully comply with code. But as the financials, the applicant provided a revised financial feasibility analysis which excluded the questioned development rights from the financial analysis, as well as revised acquisition costs. Additionally, the financials added construction costs, and I had questions about that. It wasn't clear whether the design choices they were making were pumping up those construction costs or whether they were really reflective of the LPC requirements. The applicant provided some correspondence between LPC and themselves talking about elements of the design. However, some of those elements were included in the approved LPC drawings, and some were not necessarily included, but were mentioned in this letter to LPC. So it wasn't really clear to me whether all the measures mentioned in either the letter or that appeared on the approved drawings from LPC were absolutely necessary or required. They gave us sort of this chart, but still that didn't speak to whether or not these were requirements that LPC was going to make them adhere to, or whether they were sort of requirements plus, we want to do certain things. Also, the financials covered sale prices on the units, condos versus co-ops, and I think perhaps Commissioner Otley-Brown had some issues with that, and she'd like to speak to that. There were some adjustments that were made about the R10 zoning district and how that could reflect some larger sale prices because of superior zoning. Additionally, the applicant provided a revised environmental assessment statement and an updated Phase 1 report. And the board also received a revised acoustical report stating that that we had acceptable levels of noise from the windows, and I don't know if some of the other commissioners have questions about that, but we'll ask. The opposition also submitted materials contravening many of the aspects of the financials that were submitted, as well as maintaining that noise levels would still generate noise beyond what would be acceptable. So I think the big issue is a matter of what the acceptable return is going to be and whether this is really minimal variance. So I open it up to comment. Commissioner Otley-Brown, would you like to start us off?
Yes, these comments concern the financials. As Vice Chair said, the last hearing we discussed the removal of the development rights from the site value. We also discussed sales prices that were used as comparables for the condominium units. And we have a new report that has revised several things, not just those issues. In response to the $15 million in development rights that should have been taken out of the site value, They were taken out of the site value in this new report. However, the new land values, the new land value comparables were adjusted upwards for zoning to account for the subject's R10A zoning, whereas previously they had not been. This added in some money that was displaced by the removal of the development rights, added some of it back into the land value portion of the site value. And so instead of the new site value being $15 million less than it was previously, it was only $10 million less. So now the site value is $40.6 million instead of the original $51.7. Now, the rest of, a large chunk of money was also restored back into the project cost in the form of the construction costs. The construction costs went up significantly, and it went up due to two issues. One was the fact that they said they never considered the cost of the asbestos removal, and another one is that they never considered the restorative costs for this project. I find both of those issues very hard to believe. It's very interesting that it comes now when we are trying to reduce the project cost due to an issue, a threshold issue concerning development rights. And I find it very strange that now that we have removed that $15 million, most of that money has found its way back into the project cost in one form or another. And so what ends up happening is that the new proposed hard construction costs have gone up to $38 million because of those two issues, whereas the old hard construction costs were $33 million. So when you take into the count that the land value comparables were adjusted upwards and the construction costs have increased, what you end up having is the project cost that is almost the same now as it was originally. So you have the old acquisition costs were 98 million, and the new acquisition costs are 93 million. So what should have been a $15 million reduction in the project cost is now whittled down to $5 million. And so I'm not really sure of the accuracy of all those assumptions, and I'm not sure I'm convinced by that. It just seems to me like it's a financial shell game where money is being taken from one pot and moved into another pot in order to maintain the fact that in order for this project to be feasible, it has to be exactly the way it is now, with the exact amount of community facility and the exact amount of residential. Now, I had another issue before with the condominium sales comparables, which I thought were kind of very low, and were suggesting a low price per square foot for the condominiums in this project. And I think that the opposition also agreed with that point, because they also submitted official reports that stated that the price per square foot should definitely have been higher than the $1,777 a square foot. I had given the applicant 3 comparables that I thought perhaps would suggest that there should be a higher price per square foot for the apartments, and I got a response to that. The applicant reviewed the comparables that I suggested, and the first one they dismissed because it was a cooperative apartment and said it would not be a good indicator of value for a condo. And I actually don't agree with that point. A cooperative actually is harder to sell than a condominium, and because it's harder to sell, it actually is valued lower usually. So if anything, that would be telling me that this condo would probably sell for a little bit higher than actually that stated cost. The other 2 condominiums that were reviewed, the applicant actually gave us floor plans and interior pictures. And they did have a point that the 2 comparables showed superior light and air because they had floor-to-ceiling windows and large windows, great panoramic views of Central Park. However, I went back to the original report where they showed us the floor plans for the original comparables that I felt were kind of low. And those floor plans were very simplistic, simplex apartments, 1 bedrooms, small 2 bedrooms, no outdoor space. And I actually think that the condominium comparables that I gave him are just as comparable on the higher side as his comparables are on the lower side. I think both sets needed adjusting. So I think that he actually could use the higher comparables that I gave him and adjust them downwards for the lack of light and air that these subject properties have. But I certainly think that the floor plans in these subject condominium apartments are as good as the comparables. And so therefore, I don't think they should just be discounted and thrown off as of right. So ultimately, I don't think that the applicant is getting at the true value of these apartments. I think they're still undervaluing them. And because of that, I don't think that we've gotten to a variance that at this point in time is a minimal variance, most especially because of the issues on the cost side of the equation balanced by the issues on the value side of the equation. We're not there yet.
I'm going to have to agree with the additional costs. I was kind of surprised at the additional construction costs, especially the asbestos as well, because they'd spent a good portion of last year remediating that space, as evidenced by the big old rat that I would pass almost daily outside of the building. And it was actually quite well reported in both sort of construction circles and in sort of local media that this was being done. So I can't imagine that they sort of forgot that they had these issues. Commissioner Montanez, did you want to
Yes.
chime in on this?
I would like them to give us a reason or an explanation of how they forgot the asbestos remediation, which is $4 million. And according to the EAS, their consultant, ART, says that they give an estimate of how much work has been done and how much they still have to do. So this work is under contract. We don't really need an estimate from McQuilkin. So I would like a copy of the contract to actually perform that work. And possibly, if it's near completion, the invoiced amount, because it's questionable to me.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Shanta, did you have something?
Yeah, I think, again, Commissioner Arthur Brown has raised the question. It really is concerning that, that given that this has gone through significant amount of analysis for all this period of time, and at this point, we are including these two construction elements which should have been factored in right from the beginning, the LPC, I'm forgetting, I have it in my notes, the LPC maintenance obligation, and the other one is the asbestos, and these are kind of the crux of some of the basic elements that has to be addressed, and the fact that that cost is being added in now, it's concerning. So I would like to get an understanding of what are the factors that are being considered into the construction cost. If we can get a breakdown of the critical ones, I don't want details, but if there's a way for us to know, like, what are the critical elements that are going into determining some of this basic cost price index, so that we know that every factor, critical factor, has been factored in determining the cost of construction, and not something that gets added in each time we ask for some additional information. And since this has been going on for a while and there's design already in place, I'm sure that kind of cost analysis, construction analysis has been done, so it should not be that difficult to get that information.
So I think they still have a little bit more work to do, and whether or not we're at a minimal variance. So hope they come tomorrow with some of our answers.
Okay, new cases, item number 13, calendar number 11415A through 125-15A. Let's just call this Jade Court, Staten Island.
Lots of addresses. Jade Court. Okay, just to state, we have the CPC's August 24th approval for the subdivision and school capacity certifications. We have DOT's September 23rd approval for the builder's pavement plans. What we're missing, though, is community board recommendation and the fire department sign off. but I didn't have any other comments. Anybody?
I just wanted to know if they need any other further CPC authorizations, such as removal of trees, modification of topography, and if they're in any of the special South Richmond districts areas. You know, there's sub-areas.
Item number 14, 198 and 199-15A, 500 to 550 Oak Point Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay. We're supposed to be expecting fire department sign off today, is what I heard. I'm not sure whether we will have it. We also still need the community board recommendation. So I had a lot of trouble understanding the drawings, I have to admit, on this. I looked at every single drawing over and over and over again, and I was missing one clear plan that shows us exactly where the private street is, how wide it is, and how it connects to the map streets. I'm guessing it's the hatched rectangle on Z2. If yes, we need to see the curbs. We need to see the width from curb to curb, and if there are sidewalks, the sidewalk width. I'm wondering whether the bus storage facility that occupied the site previously obtained a GCL 36 waiver, and what that operation was. That would help understand the number of vehicles that have been kind of plying back and forth there, because the proposal is for quite a lot of 157 inbound and 157 outbound trips daily. That's a lot of trucks. Well, actually, they're not all trucks, I think. 57 trailer trucks in that. We also, the parking facility and warehouse for Jetro Cash and Carry, I was used as a way of comparison, but I note that it had 2 points of entry, one from the Barry Street access, which I think is this access, though it's not clear, and the other from East 149th Street, so it's not really a comparable siting condition. With respect to the easements, I'm confused about the easement ownership for Barry Street. Is that the easement that CSX, with the CSX right-of-way? It doesn't look like it from the site plan. The site plan actually shows something else that's the right-of-way for the railroad, and I don't know what the Barry Street line is. So we were provided with an easement, but I don't, and of course, and then the drawings that were attached to the easement don't connect to anything that I could figure out. What I'd really like is someone to come here and walk us through this, put a map up on the wall and tell us what's what. With respect to the access over the CSX right-of-way, and my specific concern is about the railroad tracks. I'd like them to explain more about how the rail system is used in the area and issues that may arise about danger to trucks and trains. I understand from the statement of facts, and there's a letter submitted by a neighbor, that only 1 to 2 boxcars per week are used by that neighbor, but I don't understand whether, is there a proposal to change the use of adjoining properties? Will they make more use of rail? Is this rail something that's being phased out? I hear different kinds of stories about the use of rail. Sometimes we hear that it's going to be increased because it's an efficient system, and sometimes that it's going to be phased out. What's the proposal here? But still, I'm wondering, what if the rails are shut down for repairs? Or what if CSX decides to terminate the easement, which it says in the easement that it can terminate? And my other concern is these big trailers are crossing the tracks. What if they get stuck on the tracks? Then what happens? I'm not understanding enough about how that train system works and whether we'd be creating a danger for the trains or a danger for the trucks or what. Next.
Others who had questions about access, and I guess we haven't gotten anything from the fire department yet, so I was anxious to see what they might ask of this applicant. or if they were going to ask of this applicant, because I did have questions about how sort of the site circulation works and with trains moving in and out, and is there some sort of system, like, a red light system that says, trains coming, don't cross the track, or, so it was not clear to me exactly how the site operated, so maybe they need to be more clear about that. Those were my two issues.
I think I read in the easement that it's the responsibility of the tenant to put up emergency lighting and whatever those things are called, the gates.
The gates, yeah.
So then we need to hear what that proposal is.
So I thought that the two easements were for the railroad tracks, but then I thought, what about the section from the railroad tracks to Barry Street? Is that under someone else's ownership? And I wasn't quite certain. And similarly, whether there should be signage or lights for the railroad track crossing. And then they have this 90-degree turn entry into the site, but there's a portion which is like 45 degrees to the access road. It seemed that it would be much easier for the trucks to come in that way.
More on the top.
Yeah, a little bit further, instead of making a 90-degree turn, it would be a 45-degree turn through the gate.
Easier.
And not making those tremendous swings and swerves.
Right.
So,
I have a question, it's more of a clarification that I would need on the two prior BSA applications that were cited. In that one, the traffic study that was done covered a much larger area. It looked at areas bounded by Bruckner, and since most of the truck traffic will be coming from Bruckner area, this study mostly just did the intersection of the immediate, the Barry and, sorry, my note is not very clear here.
point out.
Right. So it would be helpful to get a clarification if the other feeder roads on to Barry and Oak, what the traffic impact would be on those, and if that study could clarify that.
Oh, that was the other thing. None of the drawings showed the connection back into the system, into the traffic system. I mean, every plan we have only gets you from Barry to a little tiny piece of Oak Point, if that's what it's called. And so you really don't get a sense of the arrival, you don't get a sense of the context at all. And it was strange because every single map showed the same tightly focused area instead of giving us something much more. And plus the tax map, which is a broader area, doesn't help because none of the streets are labeled. So when you get them automatically off of Department of Finance website, you don't get enough information about the surrounding streets. Okay.
All right. Zoning calendar decision items. Item number 15, calendar number 21914BZ, 64 DeGraw Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, they requested an adjournment, actually. We're waiting for the remedial action work plan and the CHASP and the Phase 2 to be signed off by DEP.
Okay. Item number 16, calendar numbers 22014BZ and 22114BZ, 8 and 10 Underhill Avenue, Brooklyn.
Ditto for this one, we need to defer because we're waiting for DEP sign-off of the ROP, the CHASP, and the Phase 2.
Okay. Calendar number, or item number 17, calendar number 22814BZ, 149 Hastings Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, they submitted a community board recommendation, the FAR radius study. They revised the house elevation mitigation measures on the plan. They made a note on the plan that DOB is to review the entry condition at the cellar, the porch, and the balcony. So I didn't have any issue.
Looks good.
Item number 18, calendar number 24514BZ, 133 through 31, 39th Avenue, Queens.
And here they submitted the community board recommendation to approve additional calculations to clarify the heights, compliance, and how it complies or doesn't comply with the zoning resolution, and the FAA approved points. Any comments further?
Item number 19, calendar number 31414BZ, 1604 Williamsbridge Road, the Bronx.
Okay, they made changes to the plans to improve the buffering between properties with fencing and landscaping, and the parking study was updated. I just want to make sure everybody is okay with that in terms of the parking restrictions that we asked them to look at. And then we had wanted a restrictive declaration for the parking lot. I understand that it's ready to be executed today. We need to see it executed, and a condition to permit will be that it's recorded.
All right. Item number 20, calendar number 32214BZ, 18 Coolidge Street, Brooklyn, 82.
82.
Yeah, 82 Coolidge, sorry.
Okay, just a second. Okay, they submitted a revised survey showing the curb elevation at 6.19 NAVD 88. They clarified that only an 11 foot by 4 foot extension projects into the required rear yard. They showed mitigation measures at the front elevation, and I just wanted to check that Commissioner Montanez is okay with those measures and the height calculation.
Yes, I am. That's fine.
Great, and so we would condition our approval on the retention of existing walls and elevation of existing floors as shown on the plans, that demolition of the existing structure will not, by more than 50% of the floor area will not be permitted. And the reason for this one is it's very tricky how they're going to maintain the existing house and build around it, but they have to know that they must do that, otherwise it invalidates the permit.
Item number 21, calendar number 2415BZ, 71-17 Roosevelt Avenue, Queens.
Okay, with this one, they did add a note on the drawing with respect to the maximum height of the building, no projections and so on, but we're still missing the community board recommendation. So we just need to find out whether they waive their right or whether there is a recommendation, because we really should be able to vote on this. Do you know?
I understand it was approved, we have an email in the community board. We
Okay.
just don't have a copy yet.
Well, I would suggest to the applicant that they call the community board, because maybe they don't look at their emails as often as you would like, and we really need that today. Okay?
Continued hearings, item number 22, 153-11BZ, 27-11 30th Avenue, Queens.
Okay, so as it turns out, this property is being sold, and there was a request to withdraw the application, so we're going to need to vote to withdraw and relinquish the variance. Okay.
Item number 23, calendar number 31914BZ, 1781 South Avenue, Staten Island.
And this one, they requested an adjournment to obtain sign-offs for the fire alarm systems.
Okay. This concludes the public review session of the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals.